Fantasy news must flow! Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. I am your disheveled goblin host Daniel Greene, and today we have a tantalizing tasting of fantasy news to get into. And first up, we're going to go ahead and talk about the fact that John Gwynne has tweeted a rather exciting bit of news for fans of his work. Writing update! I finished Dead Gods Rising, Book 2 of the Bloodsworn Saga a few weeks ago. Oof, that title, that series name, that first book, all great updates. And if you want to see an interview with the author himself, tune into the channel tomorrow because I will be dropping it. That's right. Daniel will be doing author interviews again. But if you're thinking, oh no, we've started fantasy news on such a high note, where could it possibly go from here? Don't worry, my little birdies. We're only gonna go up because author M.L. Wang has announced that she has another book coming out called Blood Over Bright Haven, and it's expected in either late 2021 or early 2022. Described as, Blood Over Bright Haven follows a research mage who uncovers a secret that could change the course of magic forever if it doesn't get her killed first. Ooh, that was a weird noise. Are you an intelligent individual? If so, you definitely read Sword of Kaigen off my recommendation last year, and I'm just really excited to see his author continuing to make a name for herself, and you better bet your tight little booty that I'll be reviewing this book here on the channel. I like her work. It's very good. Next news. I know many of you have deep, dark, long TBRs, insurmountable mountains of pages that you lay up at night wondering, filled with dread, am I ever going to finish it? I have bad news for you. No, you won't. And also, you're about to add another book to that pile because the winner of the SPFBO Awards has been announced for 2020, and it is titled The Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson. And I already started it. I already started this book, and guess what? It's really damn good so far. I get why it won the SPFBO Award, so that's the next self-published book I'll be reading for the fantasy genre, and if you'd like to read along with me for the review, I'd recommend starting now, because the review should be out here on the channel within the week. And yeah, the positive vibes keep moving through, because now we're going to talk about the Robert Jordan Memorial Scholarship. Are you in need of a scholarship? If so, follow the link in the description down below, and all you need to do is answer the question, how would you use your education to be a servant to all? Gotta fill it on out, and the Robert Jordan Memorial Scholarship could be yours, whether you're a Wheel of Time fan or not. But it would be really cool if it went to a Wheel of Time fan. The Wheel of Time could pay for your education. That's kind of awesome.
But now things must get dark.
We need to go into the deep, twisted, some would say vile mind of Alan Moore, because we've had it announced that he is coming out of his semi-retirement to bring us two new works. The first of which will be a collection of short stories expected to be released in 2022, autumn of 2022 to be exact. And then in 2024, it's expected that we're going to start getting a 5-volume fantasy epic from the controversial penman that is Alan Moore. I don't know why he's so controversial, but I know like everyone who's either a fan of him or not a fan of him has really strong opinions on Alan Moore. I'm in the crowd of just like, I think he's a talented guy, but his work is a bit overhyped. I think he's smart, he writes creative stuff, but people talk like he's the second coming of Tolkien, and that I disagree with. But you remember the character Cersei, right? From a song, the little known Song of Ice and Fire adaptation of Game of Thrones. Well, the actress who brought that character to life, Lena Headey, is apparently going to adapt a kids' horror book called Scary Stories for Young Foxes as an animated miniseries with Boat Rocker. And that's neat. I actually just want to like take this as an excuse to talk about the fact that I really enjoy seeing fantasy to continue to live strong for kids, because one of the greatest utilizations of fantasy I know from experience as a child is breaking down fairly complex topics and themes for children to understand and digest in a somehow more reasonable manner because of the fantastical lens. And I don't know if this is gonna do that. This whole story was just an excuse for me to say that thing that I said. Next news! This isn't entirely fantasy news I'm going to be covering here, but I'm still excited to talk about the fact that Amazon apparently has had an extraordinary level of earnings for its streaming service. And if you look into the actual numbers that are broken down in this article, it starts to make sense why it seems that Amazon is pouring ungodly amounts of money into trying to get some staple hit shows on their streaming platform. Granted, they've already had a couple really notable entries like The Boys, but with the budgets we're seeing them throw at Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, they are trying to amplify this wave to its maximum extent, and I just think it's a smart strategy. For the amount of money some streaming services make and the amount of room Amazon Prime still has to grow, it only makes sense that they're going to fight the hardest they possibly can to chop out an extraordinary piece of this streaming pie. Now, the competition is obviously high, especially with Disney making moves in the space and Netflix seemingly doubling down. HBO has its niche, and I expect it will continue to grow. It's not floundering like a lot of people thought it would after Game of Thrones, but the streaming wars are alive and well, and Amazon, I'm willing to admit here, and I guess kind of happy to say because of my own fandom for the series they're working on, is doing better than I expected them to, faster than I thought they would. So good on them for that reason, and I hope they bring us two of the greatest fantasy adaptations we've ever seen. Fingers crossed. But speaking of fantasy adaptations, we had an official post on the Rotten Tomatoes Instagram account that shows production has begun on the upcoming D&D adaptation, which I just want to use as an excuse to ask you a question. What tone do you want a D&D adaptation to have? Because for me, this is like the ultimate excuse for a fantasy adaptation to almost come in with like a Deadpool tone, like breaking fourth wall, doing neat stuff with like recasting actors and their characters die. There's so much room for creative choices here, and I think the only wrong one would be to try to make something dark and gritty, which we all know is very popular right now for fantasy, but D&D, no. You do not make a dark, gritty D&D show, and I'm pretty sure everyone involved in this process probably knows that. At the least, you go for like a Marvel tongue-in-cheek style humor, but I personally would like to see something much more overt than that. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And the Disney must pay hashtag is not dead, despite the recent good news that apparently Alan Dean Foster is reaching a mutually beneficial and happy conclusion with Disney itself. A coalition of authors is coming together to demand they pay out more than just him. It seems Disney is essentially not having this be swept under the rug. The problem is, how much of an impact could these authors actually make? I support them 100%. It's why I've covered this so thoroughly since the Disney must pay hashtag began. But let's be honest, how many of you, because of this Disney must pay hashtag, actually didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, canceled your Disney Plus subscription? I'm sure there's some out there that have, or just generally stopped supporting Disney, but can they really get it? I hope so. Alan Dean Foster was a high-profile case, and I'm hoping Disney isn't able to just pay him off and then move on from this. This needs to be a continued, focused effort from not only the authors but the fans to keep pumping this to the top of headlines because it's very important. Disney must pay. That sounded like a threat. No, Disney must pay the royalties that are due to the creatives who gave them the stories that they profit so highly off of. Simple as that. But let's go ahead and transition back to something a bit more positive here, because we had Netflix dropping the trailer for Oxygen, and oh, this looks right up my alley. It's a foreign language film sorry for the non-American ones out there, but I have to talk about it like an American. It's a foreign language film coming to Netflix where it seems to be a woman stuck in some kind of sci-fi chamber trying to figure out what has happened to her and why she is there. It's terrifying, it's mystery. I'm going to watch it, and it looks good. Sorry, I just like sci-fi concept adaptations like this, and it's a new spin on a horrific fear of mine of being buried alive, but it's like being buried alive inside an AI. Ooh. But transitioning into something a bit more beautiful, something that's we as a group can enjoy. It's magnificent. It's gorgeous. Is the fact that Jeff Goldblum is going to be joining a Dungeons and Dragons podcast for a few episodes. And if there's one thing I love about Jeff Goldblum, it's that we never know what in the hell he's going to do next. Actor Jeff Goldblum is joining the cast of the fan-made Dungeons & Dragons podcast called Dark Dice. Episodes featuring the Jurassic Park actor will begin airing for free on May 12th. That's just adorable. I don't know how else to even put that. I'm gonna listen, probably not to all of it, but I just wanted to see how Jeff Goldblum plays D&D. I want to see that really bad. But this has been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Like and subscribe if you have not already, and hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Thank you so much to my Patreons. You're the ones who allow me to keep doing the videos I know will get lower views because I just care about doing them, self-published book reviews. You guys are wonderful, and this is all of the channel. Also, if you'd like to contribute to Fantasy News, join the Discord server and post any stories you'd like to see covered in the Fantasy News channel. And check out my book, Breach of Peace, in the links down below. I love you guys so much, and girls, everyone in between. I love ya, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.